Welcome back to the Producer's Corner, where we sit down with some of the most exciting names in electronic music to unpack their creative process and production techniques. In this episode, we're joined by Waypoint, a producer I first discovered years ago when he was just starting out, entering remix contests on my channel. At just 22, he's come a long way, evolving into one of the most promising young names in drum and bass, with millions of streams on Spotify and collaborations with artists like 𝗙𝗙𝗟𝗍𝗪𝗡, 𝗙𝗙𝗡𝗪𝗡𝗧, and 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗧, and more. His discography spans from jazzy, emotive tracks like Running to pop-leaning D&B like Done With You and high-energy bangers like Never Gonna Love, as well as his remake of Olive's rave classic, You're Not Alone, showing just how versatile and polished his sound has become. In this episode, Waypoint walks us through how he builds and processes his bass lines using a detailed bass processing chain, and how he creates cohesive and energetic drum tracks using multiple layers and advanced drum processing workflow. It's a must-watch for producers wanting to level up their sound design and groove. Be sure to follow Waypoint on Instagram, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Links below. Also, like and subscribe for more insights from top producers today. And if you want to support this channel directly, check out deviantaudio.com for sample packs, preset packs, and Ableton kits to help you along your journey. You can learn more down in the links below. Alright, let's dive into it. Alright, we got Waypoint in the studio. What's going on, brother?
What's up?
How you doing?
It's all good, man. Yeah, man, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good. What you been up to?
Just making music, studio sessions, just navigating the world of being an independent artist, essentially.
You've been on quite a journey since I first met you or connected with you probably 4 or 5 years ago, and now you're just killing it with the music. Your Spotify has millions of streams. What's the journey been like for you?
Very turbulent. I started off as a naive little kid who just liked to make music, and now I've learned a lot about the ins and outs of the industry and what sort of approaches to take. And I've sort of landed in this space where I'm just now making music for the enjoyment of it and sort of following my own vision for my projects. And yeah, I must say, like, you were an integral part of my journey as well. When I was just starting out, your remix competitions and all of those sorts of things, they gave me a lot of confidence to get to where I was today.
That's really cool. Yeah, I remember when we started chatting many years ago, you were just starting out, and now your sound has really come a long way. And I like that you're going back to the original, and what it should always be about is it should be about the enjoyment and passion of making music, right? What kind of releases and sound are you working on right now?
So I'm kind of trying to combine a lot of the organic elements of typical like acoustic performances with drum and bass. So like find that middle ground and that fusion. So a lot of my upcoming tracks are very organic. I'd say, like using live drums, live instruments, things like that. Because I want to sort of bring that back. Because I feel like things are a little bit, they're not too synthetic, but for my liking, like I just want to sort of push back on that the other direction a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear from your previous work, always there's a funky vibe to it. The grooves are always very funky, groovy. You have a good ear and sense for a good hook. Like some of the songs you recorded with the Vocalists, I think Done With You has a really strong hook. Cry as well. There's really good songs.
I appreciate it.
What was it like working with those Vocalists on those tracks?
It's always a pleasure. Like you get something different with every vocalist, and it's always a learning experience. And you learn so much on how to EQ and work with different vocals on the engineering side, and then also on the performance side, like in the session. Sort of like not being a vocal coach, but also like trying to figure out what you want and trying to find a middle ground between like your strengths and weaknesses.
How does it work when you're working with a vocalist such as like the one with 𝗙𝗙𝗟𝗪𝗡𝗧? When you're writing do you write the beat together, or do you work on the beat and then present it to the vocalist? How does that work for you?
So 𝗙𝗙𝗪𝗡𝗧 actually wrote that one. She sent that over to me and I wrote the instrumental. So yeah, that one was pre-written, but usually now I'm doing everything in session, because you can kind of capture the energy of the session. And you know, when you're getting sent top lines, sometimes you can't match the energy. You don't know what they were feeling in that original moment. So it's important to sort of capture that.
Yeah, I think sometimes there's a magic that can happen when you're both together in a studio and kind of vibing off each other and vibing off an idea and inspiration, right? I see you as one of the producers that are representing the new generation of music producers, especially in the drum and bass scene. So in this new, I guess, new reality and in this digital world of production and being a drum and bass producer, for someone starting out today that's just getting into music, how does one succeed today?
It can be very scary. It can feel like there's only one route to success, and like you have to, you know, mess people about and step on people's toes to get to the top, so to speak. But it's not like that at all. There are so many routes that you can take, as long as you sort of find a good set of core and integral principles and stick to those, then you're going to be fine. If you're just putting the work in, you know, people always say it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's a cliche, but it's true. There is no shortcut to success. I'm still not successful by any means. I've still got a long way to go. But yeah, just staying true to yourself and just keeping integrity, I'd say.
I think those are wise words, being true to your core beliefs and values, which is we're here for the enjoyment and passion of writing good music, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. What are some lessons you've learned along the way?
To find people that you trust and to just sort of keep them close. And at the same time, like, don't be afraid to work with new people, expand your horizons, work with as many people as you can. Try not to develop an ego about things. That can be a bit dangerous. Just sort of respect the fact that other people have their own paths, their own journeys. You're just sort of intersecting for a moment. You might deviate again, but all in all, you're sort of the rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. As long as you work with other people, it should sort of pay dividends back in the long run. Yeah,
I think a huge thing in music is about collaborating. We learn so much when we are able to share ideas and put our ideas on the table and see what we can create together, right?
Yeah, and you're not going to learn anything just sitting on your own. You can watch every YouTube video, you can read every book, but if you're not working with other people, you're not bouncing off energy and fresh ideas, you're going to sort of get stale.
I agree. You can only watch so many YouTube videos, but until you actually put it to practice, you're not actually going to learn anything, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I've watched all your videos.
Where do you see drum and bass going in the year ahead?
It's a strange time, really, because we've got, obviously, the whole AI thing. It's a bit scary, especially with electronic music, because it's a lot easier to recreate electronic music with AI than it is sort of music that was recorded live. So I think the key thing is to sort of focus on your branding and like what your vision for your project is, so that you can stand out among all of the AI projects within a year, because it's going to happen.
You're right.
Yeah, so it's a strange time.
It is an interesting time, and it comes back to being true to who you are as an artist. No one can replicate you, right? If you have a strong vision and idea. Yeah.
It's always good to sort of cultivate that.
Well, we're very excited to see what you have in store, because your work is amazing. Your body of work that is already out there, very inspiring. Your sound is super fresh, and it's very enjoyable to listen to. You have a strong ear for what is a good hook, and it also works well on the dance floor. So really looking forward to see what you're going to show us today inside the DAW.
Yeah, I hope you guys learn something new and enjoy it, more importantly.
All right, let's jump into Ableton.
Sweet, let's go.
Waypoint, what do you want to show us today?
So I'm going to show you a project. It's a remix of a track that's been going viral at the minute called Somebody Else. It's like a Notion style speed house track. And I was given the stems and asked to do a remix of it, but it never actually came out. So I thought I'd just break it down with you today. So we've got the original vocal here. So it's a proper sick vocal. And I also, the other stems that I got was the drums, and I took the hats from the original as well. It's a nice little shaker thing. But other than that, I didn't actually use any other elements from the original.
Okay.
But my focus with this track was just trying to stay true to the original style of the track. So when I went into my bass design, the main thing was getting the bass similar to the original.
Now, when you're talking about similar to the original, are we talking about like the notes and the chord progression?
Just the sound design of the bass.
Okay.
So I don't know if you've heard that Notion style bass going around.
I have actually.
Yeah.
Kind of the driving, almost subby rumbling, almost kind of old school Reese type.
Yeah,
bass
it
line.
is quite old school and nostalgic. And it's really easy and simple to make, but obviously like there's different ways to go about it. In my case, I just used a couple of saws and then, perfect fifth oscillator. And it just gives you this nice, play it real quick. It's really rich in harmonics and stuff. There's a bit of
Now,
ring
is
modulation on it as well.
is that raw or with processing?
This is with plenty of processing.
Okay. So why don't we hear it without any processing first, and then show us your process.
So it's pretty full already. It was mainly just small tweaks, step by step, to get this kind of sound that I wanted to fit the style of track that I was making.
Were there any effects in Serum?
Yeah, we're running it really heavily through a compressor, like really heavily. Oh shit! Wait, let me turn it.
Yeah,
and just a bit of dimension, and this filter's not actually active. It's not actually doing anything, but it's a really simple patch because I don't like to do all my processing just sort of in the box inside the synth I'm using, because I just feel like it gives me a bit more versatility to just do it in a chain sort of thing, because I can do parallel processing or just in series.
Yeah, so I can see the sound design. That's the classic, almost old school sawtooth bass. You have so the main layer is -1 octave, and then you have a top layer that's an octave higher, but in the perfect fifth. So I think that's like the classic kind of drum and bass style bass.
I've seen a lot of people, they do a lot of like detuning to it as well.
Yeah.
Within Serum, and I did my sort of detuning stuff down the line a little bit. So for example, I can show you here. I've got RC20 just with a bit of vinyl wobble. Yeah. Just makes it sound more natural, basically.
Yeah. Can we hear the processing step by step? So I see you have a bunch. I guess let's start with RC with everything off, and then we can show the viewers how we end up with the final sound with each step.
Yeah. So each edition is kind of minuscule. Like you probably won't be able to hear the difference, but once everything kind of stacks up, like you do get the finished product.
Yeah.
Even. So if you follow that line.
Yeah,
that's just how it's detuning it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's showing us wobbling, and I think that's a really unique technique. I've never actually thought about using RC20 to add kind of detuning. I like how it almost sounds dreamy the way it's done. When you sent me that track, I was listening to it. That was the first thing that caught my ear. Is that there was something very nostalgic about your bass line, and it seemed like it was like intentionally going out of tune to make it sound dreamy, and I was just really curious how you did that, and that answers my question. So really cool technique.
Yeah, we also obviously I do have a pitch bend going on in Serum as well. It's like it's not, I'm not adhering to any rules here. I just felt it out, and like I'm trying to create like a Doppler effect essentially. So like when a car's going past, it goes.
Yeah, I love that. That's another really cool concept. And so I can see the line there at the very end of the two bar. You have like, I guess, two beats where it starts to bend. I really like that.
Can show you how it
Very
sounds
cool.
if you like.
Yeah.
So it's kind
Yeah,
of
I love it.
subtle. It just
It's
gives it that
subtle,
extra
but
movement.
yeah, it really does. Awesome. Okay, so what's next on the chain?
So this is a rack that I bought from Oversampled. I think it's called Oversampled. It basically just
Yeah.
puts the Ableton stock plugins together in a way that's like you can just tweak a knob and get a desired outcome. So this was just adding a top layer of noise. I can show you how it sounds without. So you can hear the difference there.
Yeah.
So that just uses erosion, which is here.
It's a really cool rack. Shouts out to Oversample. So
Yeah,
I
man.
see it's called the
Big up.
Bassmaster.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's distortion, which just uses the default saturator stock. Yeah, so that's all of that for that part of the chain. Then I've got this EQ. So basically when I'm sound designing, I shouldn't really do this, but I tweak basses with like a series of EQs until I get the sound that I'm enjoying. And then I'll kind of like go back and put them all into one EQ to just like save on CPU and save on the phase issues and all of that.
Right.
So we've got this EQ that's just like dipping some of the mud and just raising some of giving it a bit of air and just sort of thicken up the lows a bit. That's just to sort of like supply everything else down the line.
Yeah.
Another EQ stage with fresh air.
Okay. I guess that adds a bit of a high frequency to the sound.
Yep. It's just like an analog air.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting part of my chain, the KHS formant filter. I don't know if you've looked into formant filtering at all.
I've played with it mostly in Serum to get kind of those talking basses.
Yeah. I've
never used this one before, so this is interesting.
Yeah, this is really good. It's also free. So
Okay.
the KHS bundle, I believe it's free.
And I can see that you can choose the different vowels and consonants.
It's really
quite
cool. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And you can even like automate like changing between them and stuff.
Neat. I've learned something new already, so this is awesome.
I've used it here as a kind of almost like an EQ, because so it like introduces resonances that sound like a specific vowel. So in my head, I want this bass to sound like an O kind of sound. So I've gone and selected like the O here, and I've just put it on a really low Q to just sort of like boost those low mids, like that all kind of area of the bass.
Can you demonstrate it for us? So let's hear the wreath and have you, I guess, adjust the vowel sound.
Yeah. So I'll turn it all the way up and all the way down.
Yeah. Can we hear some of the other vowels?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh,
You can go all the way over here.
that sounds really cool.
It does.
And I love how fluid it sounds when you move from different vowels.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just record in an automation clip of me just like wiggling it around. I think I actually did that with this one as well when I was resampling.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a really sick plugin. You can use it for a lot of different things.
So cool.
With the resampling.
I'm gonna start using that now.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds really good paired with like distortion as well, because when you're distorting that vowel sound, it can sound really cool.
Yeah. I bet it can come in handy for those type of kind of Simla style bass sounds.
For sure.
Yeah.
So then we just have Goldfoss, which is, I usually use this on a master, but I decided to just use it on the bass here to just sort of like clean it up and save me some of the work. Honestly,
I've heard of this Goldfoss before, but I'm not sure what does it do.
So it's like It's not exactly AI, but it uses a bass curve and it tries to match the EQ of your sound to that curve. So if I play it, it shows you the frequency response here.
Okay.
So it's just an EQ essentially, and it makes things sound amazing.
Okay, so I guess it analyzes and then optimizes your signal.
Yeah, essentially it brings out the best parts and tames any resonances. You do have to be careful, obviously, like going too overboard with it, because it can kind of take the life out of your sound, as you get with other like resonance suppressors like Soothe.
Yeah. Okay.
And
I'll look into this tool. Yeah.
The rest of the chain is literally just filters and little modulation stuff.
Yeah.
And then we have the automation. So this is something worth talking about.
Okay.
When I go into the drop of a song, I want there to be a significant kind of impact and a contrast to the intro and the build. So I'll usually go through and automate different parameters to give the sound design a bit more welly, so to speak.
Yeah.
So you can see the distortions turned up on the drop. We've got fresh is turning on the drop. And then we've got the filter is kind of, we're taking out some of the highs, taking out the highs towards the drop and then bringing them back in, taking them back out again. Just sort of creating that like seesaw dynamic to just sort of like create contrast and bring more impact.
Yeah, I dig it. I can see how this can add subtle movements, or you're not always hearing the same. And I like that it's a very interesting technique where you increased the intensity of the distortion and other effects right at the drop to make the drop more impactful. I really like that technique.
Yeah, you can also use it on vocals to sort of give a vocal more pop on a drop.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's that main bass.
Is that a technique that you picked up on your own, or is that something that's widely done?
Yeah, it's kind of something I learned during my time in the major industry, working with a lot of pop writers and pop producers.
That's cool.
Yeah, and also shout out to Sage Audio as well. I don't know if you're aware of them.
I think I've heard of them. Yeah,
they do a lot of kind of like mix tips and stuff. Right. I've learned so much from them.
Yeah, I think I've seen a couple of their mixing videos. Really good content.
Yeah, the great like master stuff as well. Yeah, so that's the main sort of cool bass, and then we have I was trying to figure out a response bass, and I essentially took the exact same patch here with pretty much the same processing. I changed the EQ a little bit just to like for taste. I changed the formant filtering a little bit as well, so you can see I'm using this different vowel over here. And so I essentially just messed around with different parameters of, I'll show you what it sounds like initially. Which is alright, but it's like just a bit flat. So I'm using duck as like an LFO, essentially, as like an envelope. Without duck, it's literally just the same bass. But by enabling duck, we've got this 1/6 dotted note pattern. And I'm sort of modulating the amount to just sort of give it the movement that I wanted.
Okay.
And yeah, so
I see you have 3 different resampled layers there.
Yeah. This is just basically, I remember watching, is it Eloquent?
Yes.
Yeah, he did the same thing as this, which is where he messes around with a sample with a synth, and then when he finds an idea he likes, he flattens it, puts it on another track, and then continues to work on the original. I did the same thing here, so I created 3 different versions that I liked, and I landed on this one.
Right. Okay.
it just sort of felt right. I mean, the other ones kind of sound like this.
Right. So you were messing around and you were just trying different, I guess, sequences, and then you settled with that first one there.
Yeah. So I found
Cool.
the rhythm with the initial patch, and then I just sort of tweaked it with the resampling.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, what should we move on to? Okay, so we've got this group here. Similarly, I'm also automating the drive on this Saturn here, just again to create movement within the bass. So like this first part is not very saturated, and then this second hit is a bit more intense.
Okay. Interesting.
And that's automating the drive of this mid-range here.
Yes.
So I'm not really touching.
So
anything
just
else.
for that one section, you're increasing the drive, just for, I guess, for movement.
Yeah.
And change up.
It's on a low mix as well, so it's fairly subtle,
Yeah.
but it makes like a difference to the feeling of it.
Yeah. For this track, do you separate the sub from the top bass, or is it one layer?
It was initially one layer, and I always find that really difficult to work with.
Okay.
It like is a bit of extra work separating the layers, and you can get phase issues when you're sort of EQing out the lows of one bass and like EQing out the highs of another bass. But it does give you a lot more control with things like side chaining and just the overall balance of the track.
Okay.
So I do
So
have my sub down here.
Yeah, I agree. When you separate the sub, you get a lot more control in terms of mixing.
And with drum and bass, the sub is like, that's the main thing that's driving the track. It gives it the power.
Yeah, it's so important.
Yeah.
So in order to get the sub, are you using a filter to take off the top end?
No, I literally just went into Serum and just turned on the sub
Okay.
oscillator.
No, I dig that. I think that's a good technique. Keeps it cleaner. If you just want a sub, then just use a sine wave. Right?
Exactly.
A lot more cleaner. Yeah. I dig it.
I do have some post processing after. Just got an R bass, Saturn.
Oh, okay. So these make the bass more warm, I suppose.
Yeah, it just introduces more harmonics and
Yeah.
thickens it up a little bit.
I haven't heard about R bass in many years. We used to use that almost 25 years ago. So
Really? Wow.
it's interesting. Yeah. It's been around for that long. So
Yeah.
interesting to see that you're using it even to this day.
Yeah, this is an older version. I think that the
Yeah.
more recent version has like a nice, cool, sleek design.
Okay.
But yeah, it's really useful for just sort of like accentuating lower harmonics. You can
Okay.
you can put it on like your main bass as well. Just
Yeah.
I think it makes your subs more audible on like smaller speakers.
Exactly. Yeah. Adds additional harmonics on top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cool.
Okay, so we have this bass Atmos layer as well,
Okay.
and this is just like a print of the main bass, and I've just got a reverb on it 100%. Nothing special really, but you could do this through like a parallel channel,
Okay.
but in this case I just wanted a bit more control again with the EQ and stuff.
Yeah.
I
So
wanted
this
to sort of-
plays on top of the bass?
Yeah, so if I play them, I'll play the bass on its own and then I'll add the Atmos.
Okay.
You can tell the difference.
Okay.
Just
Seems
gives
to
it,
add a little more depth.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's kind of metallic reflections. Yeah, and I've just got it leading up in the drop as well. I've taken the response bass, I've printed that out and I've put it in the build up as well.
Can we hear that in the solo? Yeah, great. Okay, so it's pretty much your bass patch bounced the audio and then you added that, I guess, a Pro Reverb plugin to add
Yep.
space to it. I like
Yep.
that. Yeah, I think when we were talking before, you mentioned about parallel processing. So would this be considered parallel processing?
I would say so, because I'm using the exact same patch as I am up here. So it is just the
Yeah.
same thing in parallel.
Yeah.
If you're using, I mean, what I'm doing here can create phasing if you've got the mix on like 0, because you've just got the
Right.
same sound playing at the same time.
Right.
Which is why like parallel processing can be so useful, because you've got everything on 100%. You're trying to minimize that phasing.
Yeah.
But I can take you to the parallel channels if you want to have a look at those.
Sure.
Yeah, so we've got, I usually use this kind of template when I'm starting a project. I'll have a small reverb, like a room reverb. The decay time is actually matched to the tempo of the project.
That's cool.
So this is like an 1/8 note or something.
Right.
And then my longer sort of hall reverb is like a 1/2 note or a note.
I like it when producers think about that.
Yeah, it does make a difference, but like it's very it's not really noticeable. It's kind of just like if you want to nerd out about like the maths of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got this hall reverb is on the main bass and some other things as well. And the good thing about parallel channels is they allow you to use like the same space for multiple elements. So you don't have, if you're using a different reverb on a different element, all of those reverbs come together and it can kind of make it a bit washy, a bit
Yes.
like, you know, a bit lack of detail. So by feeding everything into the same reverb, you're just creating this overall, everything's in the same room, just keeps it tight.
I agree. Yeah, it's like instead of having individual reverbs for every single sound, you can kind of mix things sound a little more cohesive if
Yeah.
a number of sounds share the same reverb output.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've got the reverbs also sidechained to the vocal, because the vocal's the main thing I wanted it to cut through. You could also sidechain it to your bass to sort of have that, like, the bass hits and then it leaves a tail in its wake.
Cool.
I'm also sidechaining to the kick and the snare, just with the duck.
Okay.
You could
Okay.
use a
Oh,
compressor.
interesting. Okay. So using duck and it's being sidechained to the kick and snare. So every time the kick and snare hits, it ducks the reverb, making
Yeah.
more room for, I guess, the kick and snare to cut through.
Yeah, it gives a bit more of a pumpy effect as well.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, sick. And then same thing going on with the delay, essentially sidechaining. So this is a big one. This is the parallel saturation, where I got a lot of the weight for the bass.
Okay.
So I've just got it mixed in at like -26 here, and
Okay.
I've also got it automated for the response bass.
Yeah.
So if I just solo the saturation channel here. Sounds like shit on its own. But when it's all mixed
It's
in
okay.
together, it just gives more depth and more texture.
I dig it. So, okay, let's see what's in this parallel processing chain. So you have decapitator and you have the punish mode on, and I can see your drives all the way to 10.
Yeah, it went a bit crazy.
Yeah.
You can do things like that in drum and bass. I think people like
I
it
think
distorted
so.
to fuck. As long as you're
Drum and bass is,
go on, sir.
it's all about breaking the rules, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
People just like it in
Okay.
your face. As long as you're like EQing and making sure that it's not like taking people's ears off, and
Yeah.
you're tasteful with it.
Yeah.
So there is a built-in low cut in Decapitator, but I just wanted to have more control with my own EQ after the saturation. So I've just sort of dipped a bit of the harsher side of it. Didn't
Yeah.
really want the air. And
Mhm.
I've taken off all the lows because I'm doing that already with the sub.
Yeah.
And I've also, a thing that I learned recently, originally I was using your normal EQ setting, but I've been switching to linear phase for my parallel chains, just because when you're running something in parallel, you don't want to cause phasing issues, and your linear phase can sort of help be a bit more transparent with your EQs.
Okay. I'm still new to this phasing issue thing in terms of linear EQs and whatnot, so good to know. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
I'm really new to it as well, to be fair. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of this is just like research and like hearing things online, trying it out for yourself, seeing if it works. Just find it's a lot of trial and error.
Exactly, I agree.
You're never like going to be an expert producer. Like even the best producers in the world still have so much to learn.
100%. I was just in my interview with 𝗙𝗢𝗚𝗪𝗢. He was just telling me how Andy C to this day is still seeking others to learn new techniques. So as a producer, we're always learning.
That's
right?
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, I've just got it side tuning to the kick and the snare.
Yeah.
And I've also got a soothe here just to help tame any like resonances that might come up in the low end, because I don't want like a bit of mud getting generated through this step.
Yeah.
Okay, so another interesting thing I've got going on is this parallel crystal chain. I've never actually done this before, but it just adds like a layer of crystals onto the channels that I've got it enabled. Yeah, so this is the main sound here.
Yeah.
Just gives that instrument a bit more, just like adding another layer essentially without having to do anything.
Yeah. It's very subtle and quiet, but I can see it adding to the sound.
And it sort of widens the stereo image as well.
Nice.
Yeah, so should we move on to the drums?
Let's see what you got for the drums.
Okay. So I'll just play the drums. All right.
Yeah. Those are nice drums.
Yeah, I tend to make my drums a little bit too harsh, which I think I have here. But I think that comes down to sort of like my sample selection and stuff, because I don't really tend to synthesize my drums from scratch. I'm using samples a lot of the time. But for example, I'll find a sample that has a fundamental frequency, like the snare here. And I'll just sort of like, I'll tune the snare, find the fundamental, that's the base of the snare, then I'll layer more samples on top of that.
Okay, so you are still kind of creating your own snare by selecting different layers and layering them together.
Yeah.
So let's hear the individual layers. So we heard the fundamental, and then
clap layer.
Yeah.
And so I'm making sure to shave off the initial transient of the other layers as well.
Okay, so this is important for everyone to see. So you have the fundamental. Let's hear the fundamental once again. Okay. And it's okay. And with the EQ and the fundamental, what do you remove?
I'm just taking out any low end because there was some low end in the sample.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just the low end. And then the
it's also in
layer.
mono.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, the clap layer. So you can hear it sort of missing that initial attack.
Yeah. Okay.
And then this is just like a more sort of more organic layer, I'd say. I'm always I like to add organic layers to my drums to just make them feel more real.
So the fundamental is where the attack is. The top has a bit of an attack too.
Yeah.
And the clap, you've add a little bit of fade because you don't really need the attack from the clap, right?
No. Just take up unnecessary headroom.
Yeah, so let's hear it as a whole. Yeah, sounds much more full as all three layers together.
Yeah, I think so. And I did the same approach with the kick here as well. So I use this plugin called 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗘. Oh,
Nice.
can get to it. Oh, you can cut that bit, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Yeah, so I used 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗘 here, which is a kick synth essentially, and you can sort of tune your kicks to the key of the track. I always like to tune my drums. Like some people say it's not worth it, but from my experience, every time I tune a kick or a snare, it just really helps glue it into the track.
So is the kick in the key of your track?
Yeah, and the snare as well, I should have mentioned.
Cool.
It just helps them interact with the frequencies going on in the track.
Yeah. If you don't mind jumping back, so with
Sure.
the snare layer, you have the 3 layers. Do you have any processing on the snare group to bring it all together?
Yeah, I do. Just a light compressor, really
Okay.
tiny bit of compression.
Yeah.
I've got this tape, just sort of again gluing it together.
Yeah.
And this, I wouldn't usually do this, but I just wanted to boost the fundamental. When I was sort of,
Makes sense.
because when I'm mixing, I do everything in the context of the track, and I'll just sort of mess around with different EQs and bring out different areas and just see what sounds nice in context.
Yeah.
That just sort of sounded nice.
Yep. You got to go with what sounds good.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, the tops is just a lot of break and shuffle layers. I'm trying to make sure that transients don't sort of get in the way of each other. I'm not trying to have too many transients going on at once.
Yeah.
So you can see here, like the open hat is on its own, just gives it that space. And I've got the tops side tuned to the snare as well to just sort of create a bit more of a pump.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's nothing really too interesting with the tops.
Let's hear the tops on its own.
Yep.
I actually like how you did the tops. They sound very dynamic. There's really good rhythm in there. So yeah, I can see there's a lot going on there.
I realized the open hat was a bit too smooth for my liking, so
Yeah.
I did this neat little trick where I added a auto pan on 100%.
Oh, that's cool.
Every so often, only on like when I wanted to have a bit more impact.
Yeah.
If I can so it hits sometimes it doesn't,
Okay.
and yeah, it just like this saw wave creates this like
And
natural
it's
distortion.
Ah, I see. I've heard of this trick before. Essentially, it's creating a volume LFO, a really fast volume LFO
Yeah.
on the help and hi-hat. Yeah.
So if I turn it off,
Yeah. It almost makes it sound like it's being distorted.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
like it's being
Yeah.
clipped by like a sub.
Exact. Yeah, it's a really cool technique. I think let's play the kick layer. I think we
Sure.
yeah, we didn't go through the individual layers. Let's hear how each layer sounds on its own. Yeah. So what's on the top?
So the top is just a sample where I've just taken out the sub.
Yeah.
Don't know why that's on there.
Yeah.
And the bottom is the sample that I used from 𝗙𝗥𝗘𝗘.
Yeah.
That's
Can we
just-
hear the bottom on its own?
Sure.
Nice.
And
Yeah,
there is
so the
there is a top
top is
element to that as well, but
Okay. This is a really cool tool. I've also heard of it. I've never used it. It sounds like a cool instrument to make your own kicks.
yeah, I think it was initially like Disclosure with it, recommended it. I thought I'd
Right.
try it
I
out.
think I've seen that video. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah.
use it all the time because it's a little bit sort of like constrained.
Hmm.
It's not too versatile, but it's good for sort of generating that nice fundamental frequency in your kick.
Okay.
So it's really nice
Yeah.
for sort of adding a sub to your kick.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess the top layer is what gives it the character. Then
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
big kick is where you get the bottom end for it.
It's always good to keep the bottom end nice and clean. You can get a bit more messy with the top.
Yeah.
And then I've just got a compressor on it as well.
That's on the kick group?
Yeah. So I've got a compressor on it and a transient shaper. Just sort of making sure that when you duck the sustain knob, it brings the sustain of all the samples together. So it just sort of tightens everything as one.
Yeah, that glues it all together. Good way to do it, actually.
Yeah. And if you feel like your kick is taking up too much space in your track, you can just mess with this until it tightens up to what you need.
Yeah.
Should we have a look at the drum processing?
Yeah, the drum bus. Quite interested to see how you process the entire drum track.
So I always start off with a compressor.
Okay.
I usually use SSL, any type of bus compressor, with a slow attack, fast release. Slowest attack, fastest release. Because you want the transients to still come through.
So what does this do to the drum bus? What's the intent of this plugin?
It's to just sort of glue everything together and give it a bit more of a groove, and also sort of like bringing up the quieter elements, making sure all of these transients just sound nice and glued.
Okay.
Yeah, SSLs are really good for that.
Yeah.
It also sort of adds like a nice analog character to it as well, like a unique character.
How much compression is it actually adding? Is it subtle or is it more in extreme?
I only go for sort of 4 dB max.
Okay, good to know.
If I play it, you can see.
Yeah.
So not
it's
too much.
Subtle,
really.
Yeah. Subtle, but it's what glues and makes the drums sound more whole.
Yeah, and I have other forms of compression down the line as well. I'll go through everything step by step though.
Yeah, let's see what. Okay, so you got the 𝗙𝗘𝗧𝗏.
The secret source here again.
Yeah.
This is just it's EQing the drums as a whole, just to make them sound more pleasing to the ear.
Nice.
This is just a creative effect comb filter that pops in every now and then.
Okay.
Fresh air for a bit of analog air. Brighten up the highs a little bit. This is just a really subtle EQ. So again, I'm just sort of when I'm mixing in the context of the track, I'll mess around with EQ and sort of take away and add different frequencies.
Nice.
See what sounds nice.
Yeah.
And then we have a parallel compressor here, New York style. So usually I would do this on a separate parallel track, but this lets you do it within the plugin.
Yeah.
So if I just solo the signal. So that's essentially the signal that's getting added to the whole drums.
Yeah.
And you can just sort of mix it into taste. And this spank knob is how intense you want the compression. So it just adds a lot of thickness to your drums.
Yeah, thickness and punchiness.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I see you got a cymatics plugin.
This is just
I've heard of this.
Yeah, so it's a free clipper. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I'll usually just have this towards the end of my chain, just to start shaving off the peaks. And then I don't want to put too much workload on any one plugin. So usually I'll sort of split compression, limiting, stuff like that over the course of a few different plugins that I like. So yeah, we've got a limiter after the drums as well, after the clipper, sorry.
Yeah.
And it's on 1-to-1 mode, which means that the gain is compensated for. Just show you that as well. So again, it's very light, just sort of shaving off the peaks and giving you less work in the master chain.
Yeah. What I like about your drums is even though they are all individual hits and many different layers, when you put it all together, it sounds like one break, which just sounds really good.
Yeah. I think it comes from using a lot of breaks as well, and sort of understanding how breaks work through like rhythm and feel. You've got your micro timings like here. And yeah, That's it, basically.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right, Waypoint. Really appreciate you sharing us your personal process on production, and I think everyone learned a lot here today, and very grateful of you to share your own personal techniques. Hopefully everyone can learn something and maybe add something to their own style. It's all about learning from many others and creating your own personal techniques. So just want to thank you for being on the channel today and sharing with the audience.
Thank you as well, man. Like, it's always a pleasure. You're my goat. when I was starting out. Yeah. Cheers.
And now you're the goat.
No, not at all.
All right, big up, brother.
All right,
we'll talk soon, all right?
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, hope you guys enjoyed watching Waypoint's personal flow in terms of how he processes and creates his bass line, not to mention how he creates his rhythmic and energetic drum tracks. Pay close attention to his processing chain, and although you may not have the exact same plugins, it's more about the approach and thinking process on how he processes his sounds. Remember to follow Waypoint on all your favorite platforms down in the links below, and check out 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗡𝗦 for all things sample packs, preset packs, and Ableton kits to help you along your journey. For more videos from the Producer's Corner, check this playlist up here. And to watch me recreate drum and bass classics, check this playlist up here. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay creative and peace out.